Hello again, everyone, and welcome to what is now episode 1 of Game Chat. Today's episode is Let's Talk Double Dragon. Mark and I, it's only Mark and I today. Rob wasn't able to make it, and nobody else is interested in sitting and talking with me for any length of time. So,
Where's that 20 you owe me?
that's right. Crap, I bought you breakfast. Anyway, so today we're going to be talking about Double Dragon for the NES, which, if you don't know, is a fighting game. It's basically the granddaddy of all side-scrolling beat-em-ups. It's basically I'd like to say balls-out fighting game, but, I mean, let's face it, this is the NES. Nothing was really balls-out on that system. It is a game that was originally an arcade side-scrolling beat-em-up, which, if you don't know what that is, again, that's literally a game where you walk from the left side of the screen to the right side of the screen and beat up anybody who gets in your way, right?
So Walmart shopping.
Walmart shopping. Yeah, it was originally an arcade game, and then came to the NES by, I believe, Tecmos Japan in '88. So, yeah, this game is
Old
damn
school.
old. It's, I'm only 2 years older than this game, let's put it that way. The thing about this game is that the NES version is crap. when you compare it to the arcade games, it's terrible, right? But
Well, in its defense, it was the second game that the development group ever did for the NES. So they kind of sort of cheated anywhere they figured they could get away with it. Like the multiplayer being I'm going to play, then you're going to play.
yeah,
No two guys on the screen at the same time.
yeah, it like a lot of the old side-scrolling beat-em-ups were like two at a time. Two players working together to beat everybody up, and that's the way the arcade version was. But with the limitations of the NES hardware, which were many, and Tecmos not really knowing what they were doing with the hardware, they kind of chinsed out and made it so that you could play together, but it was only one player plays the level, then, they play through until they die, then the next player gets to take over.
Same way Mario Brothers works.
Yeah, kind of like the original Mario Brothers worked, my turn, your turn, my turn, your turn. They also had a really terrible fighting mode known as Mode B, exciting enough, where you could play either single player or multiplayer, and you would choose out of one of the 9 characters in the game and then fight against your mirror, like your double. So you could play as the lead character, Billy, or Bimmy, depending. We'll get to that. You could play basically against a double of yourself and fight. If you played against a computer-controlled character, it was definitely in favor of the computer, and you almost never won. But you could play against your buddy, and I mean, it's like if you really, really slowed down Mortal Kombat and then made it so that there was no hit detection whatsoever, and you only could punch and kick and there was no super moves. That was Mode B. So we're not here to talk about Mode B, we're talking about Mode A. Double Dragon is the story of Billy and Jimmy Lee, who are on a quest to rescue Billy's girlfriend, who is captured by some unknown party.
Shadow Warriors.
I believe the Shadow Warriors or something like that. I mean, again, it's a story. It's an NES game. The story's not really that important. But no, I said Bimmy, and the reason for that is that due to it being Billy and Jimmy as the two main characters, and due to the wonderful fault of translation between Japan and the U.S. in the mid-'80s, it was Bimmy, which is, a nice amalgamation of the two names. So everybody knows Bimmy, and that's about it. So the whole purpose of the game is to walk from left to right, beating up guys, everybody who gets in your way. Now, what made this game unique, I guess, was the ability to use weapons and pick up whatever anybody sent at you. You could pick up what were some of the weapons?
There was the chains, the throwing knives, the baseball bats, the cardboard boxes.
The dynamite.
The oil barrels, yeah.
No, it wasn't dynamite. I'm pretty sure it was
Firecrackers.
Yeah, which incidentally did a lot of damage.
Go figure.
Again, due to the limitations of this game, though, they could never have more than 2 enemies on screen at a time, and they were always the exact same enemy. So you'd always fight, like two black dudes wearing cargo pants and a vest. Nobody wore shirts apparently in the 80s.
Except for the random chick that always looked like she was wearing like a
tracksuit,
cast iron push-up bra.
Yeah, it was like a tracksuit and a tank top, and it was just terrible. And like the perm, she looked like April O'Neil. God, it was really terrible. Basically, we're not trying to say this game is like the best game ever made.
It's fun.
It's one of those games that you play because you've got nothing to do on a shitty rainy afternoon. You want to pull out an old crappy game to have some fun. This game doesn't require a lot of thought. Just pull it out, start hitting the buttons. Now, for the most part, there isn't a lot of technique to the game. It's basically punch, kick, pick up the weapon, hit the guy, wait for him to get up, hit him again.
Until you learned how to jump kick, and then it was just timing jump kicks to kill everything, including the bosses.
Yeah, what happens is, initially off the start, you only have the A and B buttons on the controller, so you could only punch and kick. But as you defeat guys, you level up, which is denoted by a little heart underneath your character. And basically, as you level up, you gain more techniques. Like you can get a roundhouse kick, or you can jump kick, and then you can grab guys by the hair and start kneeing them in the face.
And do the reversals and
counter punches, stuff like that. So, and the headbutt. Which is actually kind of useful. It's like a room clear. It's used to knock guys down, buy you some breathing space. Now, again, there are only two characters on the screen at any given time, but they can surround you pretty easily, especially some of the larger enemies. So the techniques are important to a point, but most of them, even if you know how to do them, you tend to do them by mistake anyway.
Yeah, it's the fine art of button mashing.
Yeah, it's the fine art of button mashing. It's really just be overzealous on your B button, and you should be okay with the game. Another thing is that the port of the NES version, again, was much different than the arcade from the fact that, well, there was way less going on.
Simpler screens, and the fact that you had to fight your brother at the end.
Yeah, because of the fact that they realized that, hey, we can't have Jimmy in here and you're only playing as Billy or Bimmy. They added on another level at the end where you beat the final boss, whose name was Willie. That's right, you beat your Willie. And then Jimmy shows up as the actual final bad guy, and like, oh, it was actually me who kidnapped your girlfriend because I'm a jealous prick. And yeah, it was shocking and
I cut my wrist because I'm emo.
And earth shaking, But again, like we said, NES game, story's not important. Yeah, the levels though focus more on dodging traps and a little bit of platforming as opposed to the arcade one.
I don't really think it should be called traps. It's the, hi, there's a big hole, don't fall in me.
Yeah, it wasn't like, oh goodness, there's a bear trap or, like pitfalls or anything. It was a big hole in the middle of the level, and if you happen to walk the wrong way, you would fall into the hole.
Or they'd make it skill intensive, where you have to like maneuver yourself off the conveyor belt because it will throw you to your doom.
But it's a conveyor belt. You can imagine how fast that's moving. Not very.
But it was kind of helpful because the AI on the enemies was really bad.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about some of the more memorable parts of the game. Now, I am going to try and get some video uploaded with this podcast so that you can actually see what we're talking about while we're talking about it.
A Bobo's Revenge.
And so we need to see a Bobo. A Bobo is fun. He's probably one of the better known unknown characters from the NES era. Basically, Double Dragon had your typical level progression. Walk from left to right, fight a boss at the end, move on to the next level. The first level is basically you walking through the streets of
wherever.
City X, whatever it happened to be. And towards the end of the level, you get into a warehouse that is filled with TJC TVs. I guess it was supposed to be JVC or something. They like to do little things like that in the old games. But there was a conveyor belt, and you have to fight two guys, and there's a pitfall at the end, and you basically just kick them in. A Bobo is this big, huge black guy that comes out. Think like a ripped Michael Clark Duncan. Okay, and this guy comes out, and if you don't know the trick to him, he's actually fairly challenging, especially at that point since you don't have all your techniques to be able to evade and knock them down and whatnot. The trick is you just stand on the treadmill or the conveyor belt and punch him, and he will fall into the pit of doom, and that is it. But so Abobo is known for basically being a giant loser. But he does come back towards the later parts of the game, sometimes as a palette swap, sometimes as himself. So they'll make him white, so when he's white, he kind of looks like the Russian weightlifter guys from Family Guy, if you've seen them. Look it up. So yeah. But Abobo has actually had his own spin-off game produced by a bunch of guys over at Newgrounds. If you're not familiar with Newgrounds, check it out, newgrounds.com. It's like a Flash portal.
I'm sorry, if you're listening to our podcast and you have not discovered Newgrounds, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah, you are internet noob. So I'm going to help you upgrade your skill level. Go to newgrounds.com, check it out. Type in Abobo's Revenge. It's basically a new age retro game done by some guys who, decided that Abobo has never had a story told, NES is full of all these great stories, but Abobo never got the spotlight. Abobo's Revenge takes place
starting at the bottom of the pit.
Starting at the bottom of the pit. What happens is Abobo's son, that's right, Aboboy, has been kidnapped, and it is up to Abobo to rescue Aboboy. I had to practice saying that. So the whole point of the game, it's basically Double Dragon, but it's much more vicious. You play as Abobo, who is like within the NES sprites,
monstrous.
He was monstrous. He was twice the size of your player characters in Double Dragon. So you're playing as this massive character. You're playing as a boss, right? So you basically spend the game ripping the heads off small children and eating them to restore health. It's full of shit jokes and potty humor and
stuff we probably would have found funny when first playing it. Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
And still find funny.
Now, it's all done with 8-bit graphics, but because of the fact that there's some modern day sensibility put into it, there is a lot of silly things that they're able to do because they're not working within the limitations of the hardware. They're working with the limitations of modern computers, so they can do whatever they want. I just know that I spent a level racing through the water like Mario Brothers 1 level 2 or whatever, like the first water level in that game, punching sharks with laser beams on their frickin' heads and eating the Mario squids to restore health, and then attacking. Oh, I killed Jaws too. Remember that much? Yeah. Abobo's Revenge is incredibly non sequitur. So
segue.
Just check it out.
Anyway, so
tons of fun. So back to Double Dragon.
Overall, it was kind of getting back to being, just a simple pick up a controller. I don't need to know what this cool combo is or whatever. Just hit buttons and people fall down. And just figuring out that, wait a minute, when I jump kick something, it goes and falls down and I can run away.
Yeah. It's great old school sentimentality. It's just a game, again, like we said, just one of those games where you sit down and you're just looking for something goofy to do that you don't have to think about. I mean, if you really want to boil it down, God of War is the same thing. Any action game nowadays where you go around beating up guys comes back to something like this, where it's walk around, beat up guys, get new weapons, get new shit, and go get the girl, get the god, whatever. So if you really want to boil a game like God of War, any action game down to its base contents, and siphon away all the cool shit, go play Double Dragon. You can find it on an NES. I mean, if you want to go into an old game store, like you can pick up a copy of the NES, of the NES hardware, pick up a copy of the game, or check out the Retrons. That's retro with an N on the end, which is a system that allows you to play old school games. It allows you, if you get the Retron 3, it allows you to play NES, Super NES, and Sega Genesis games. And it's only like $70, and it hooks up to modern TVs and everything, and it's totally worth it. It's gravity fed too, meaning it's a top loader. Because
dust blow trick.
Yeah, there's no blowing the dust trick like the NES. You can actually just slot it into the system, and generally they'll work the first time. It's top loaded like the Super NES and the Sega Genesis, which worked way better because if you've played NES, good God, even knew those systems didn't work. But yeah, you can check out Double Dragon on the NES. It's been re-released back in 2003 on the Game Boy Advance as
Virtual Console.
Double Dragon Advance. You can find it on the Virtual Console for the Wii as Double Dragon. It's $5 to download it. I mean, $5 for an afternoon of play is not a bad thing.
And then there's the new one they got working on.
That's right. Way Forward. Those are the guys who have produced Shantae and Shantae 2 Risky's Revenge. They did the Blood Rain, side scroll beat 'em up. Basically, everything these guys do is gorgeous. They put a lot of love into it. They're a very small developer. They are producing Double Dragon
Neon.
coming out. What was the release date on
I think
that? July. So probably, I think it was July 26th or something like that. So within about the next 6 weeks or so, take a look on XBLA and PSN, and you'll find Double Dragon Neon, which is actually a continuation of the story. So whatever story there is in Double Dragon, but the point is it's new Double Dragon. So be sure to check that out. If you want some more fun, take a look at Double Dragon and Battletoads on the Super NES and the NES. Again, you could always check those out via emulation online if you are willing to do that, or pick up a copy. It's a ton of fun. Check it out. That's all we got for today, guys, I think.
Yeah, we didn't have enough people to interrupt and stretch this out a little longer.
Yeah. Again, if there is anybody that actually listens to this, and I'm hoping there is, please feel free to leave comments in the comment section below and tell us about any games you want to hear in the future. That, again, is any old school video games, all the way up till, the previous generation, Xbox, GameCube, PlayStation 2. Anything about a couple years old we'd like to talk about. Board games, war games, card games, anything like that. Let us know. We'll research it. We'll talk about it, and we'll give you our professional gamer opinions, so to speak. So until next time, guys, have a good one.